Good evening and welcome to the May regular school board meeting for the Duluth Public Schools. I'm calling this meeting to order. Welcome, everybody, and I'd like to turn it over to Clerk Mike Cassell for our roll call.
Member Banks.
Here.
Chair Dirk Eater.
Here.
Member Loeffler Kemp.
Here.
Member Lofald.
Here.
I am here. Member Sadowski is excused. Member Williams.
Here.
Superintendent Magus.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Bonds.
Present virtually.
Deputy Clerk Zunich.
Present.
Executive Director of HR and Operations Severance.
Present.
Board Secretary Patty Paquette. Here. Student Reps Taylor is excused. Student Rep Garner is excused. And Student Rep Dean.
Present.
Thank you very much, Clerk Mike Cassell. Now, if you will, we have the flag in our back corner here, and we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. Now I'll ask for approval of the agenda as it stands. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. It's been moved by Member Loeffler Kemp. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Member Mike Cassell. Now I'm opening it up for discussion. And do we have any discussion?
Chair Eater, I'd like to offer an amendment to tonight's agenda. And I'm going to make a motion, and then I'm going to look for a second to that motion. And my amendment is to remove on our consent agenda 1B, 2D, which is really the contracts, change orders, and leases, and it's about the MnDOT London Road property sale. That's on page 30 of the financial HR business agenda from last week. So I want to make a motion to remove that from our consent. And then the second part of this amendment would be to add that contract, change order, lease, the contract for MnDOT, to add to our agenda, our regular school agenda, this 1B, 2D. So it's removal from consent and place it on tonight's agenda. That's my motion. I'm looking for a second.
Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Mike Cassell. So, and I will open it up for discussion on the on amending the agenda. Do we have any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing no further discussion, we will vote on the amendment to the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Nay. We have passed the amendment to the agenda. Now we need to vote on the amended agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
It has been moved by Member Lofald. Do we have a second?
Second.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. Member Williams seconded it. Right? Okay. Do we have any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, we will vote on the amended agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We have an amended agenda. Yay, okay. Whew. All right. After that, rather lengthy exchange, now let's move on to a great part of the meeting, the school and the community recognition, and I'll look to Superintendent Magus for that piece. Thank you.
Thank you, and I can't fill the shoes of Assistant Superintendent Bonds, but dear school board members, tonight it is my honor to recognize 3 truly exceptional educators who exemplify the dedication and passion that is present within our district. Rachel Lofald, who couldn't be here tonight, Emily Blomquist and Corey Henkel. We're incredibly proud to celebrate them as nominees for this prestigious 2025 Minnesota Teacher of the Year Award. Please come forward. Well, this award ultimately went to another deserving educator. Their nomination in and of itself is a testament to their profound impact and unwavering commitment to our students. Rachel Lofald, the talented choir teachers at Denfeld High School, Emily Blomquist, a nurturing preschool teacher at Myers-Wilkins, and Corey Henkel, an energetic physical education teacher also at Myers-Wilkins, who you met earlier this year for recognition and helping out with an emergency at Myers-Wilkins, all share common threads that make them stand out. Their profound dedication to equity and ensuring that every single student feels seen, heard, and included. In their respective classrooms and beyond, Rachel, Emily, and Corey consistently go above and beyond to create environments where every student feels a sense of belonging and has the opportunity to thrive. They truly understand that education is beyond academics. It's about fostering an inclusive space where diverse voices are celebrated and every child's unique needs are met. Their nominations for Minnesota Teacher of the Year underscore the remarkable way they do their thing. It highlights their innovative approach, their tireless efforts, and their profound belief in the potential of every child. We are immensely grateful for their contributions to our school, community, and the inspiring example they set for all of us. Please join me in extending our deepest gratitude and heartfelt congratulations to Rachel Lofald, Emily Blomquist, and Corey Henkel for their outstanding achievements and their unwavering dedication to our students. Thank you for embodying the very best of our district. And would you like to say anything? As I hand you the microphone.
Yeah, just grateful to be a part of such a wonderful school and school district. And there's many educators who deserve this nomination. And I'm sure I'll speak for Emily too, but just grateful for this opportunity. And although we didn't get a chance to make it to the top 25, it was an amazing experience. And the lady who ended up winning the whole entire thing had been teaching for 49 years. And they mentioned multiple times about her amazing energetic enthusiasm. So I'm hoping that we can still be that way and, another 40 years.
And I totally echo all of the sentiments Corey shared. I don't know that I'll be able to teach preschool for 49 years, as getting up and down off the ground might be difficult. But I am so grateful to be a teacher at Duluth Public Schools. I am grateful to be a representative for Head Start in our world that is happening right now. And I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Usually we take a picture if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great way to move into the next conversation, which is the report of the superintendent. So I will turn it over to Superintendent Magus for the next bit.
Thank you, and I'm just casting. Well, thank you, and tonight's superintendent report, we always start off with our mission, vision, and values. Our mission is that every student, every day, will be empowered with learning opportunities for growth, creativity, curiosity, and preparation for their future in a global community. And I think we heard that well exemplified by our teachers that were recognized tonight. Our vision is that Duluth Public Schools provides an academically engaging, safe, and inclusive environment with high expectations and responsible use of resources. And our core values are learning, excellence, equity, collaboration, and belonging. Tonight, our topics, we have our student reports, and tonight we have one student report by Kate Dean from East, and our other students are excused with some of the end-of-year activities and things that we have going on. But Representative Dean, would you mind sharing?
All right. Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, a lot of what we discussed at our last student forum meeting had to do with, some thoughts about events at East, which I shared with student government, and then a lot of ideas for what students would like to see in relation to the Intracity Student Council. And I was able to share a lot of the feedback that I got with Mr. Magus a few weeks ago, and I think that some of the details of what we came up with will be shared later at this meeting. Just some updates of what's been going on at East. Yesterday, student government hosted a tailgate prior to the girls' lacrosse game. It was held in the parking lot, and tons of students showed up with both cars and friends. Many more came from track practice and from lacrosse warm-ups. The event featured grilling, club info tables, live music from a student performer, yard games, and excellent turnout. We did run out of food. We are excited to start a tradition of real tailgates before football games in the fall, and we're going to hope for warmer weather next time. Tomorrow is our last pause day of the school year, and it is going to be jam-packed. A yearbook club will be starting to set up for distribution at 7 a.m., and throughout the day there will be yearbook distribution, cap and gown distribution, our spring sports assembly, and a new event in the afternoon, which will be a yearbook signing and social put on by student government. Students are definitely finding it difficult to make up any missed tests at the end of the year while still having time to be involved with clubs. That was kind of the intention of having our pause days, but as you know, they get very, very busy. We are hoping that some amendments to our schedule next year will help to accommodate some of those concerns. I think we're looking at some alternatives to pause days. I know that schedules and class requirements are something that I bring up a lot, but I do so because that's what I hear the most comments and concerns from students on. I want to go a little bit more in depth about how we've been impacted, because at the end of the year, thoughts about what next year is going to look like it's really at the front of students' minds. So last spring, each grade was called to the auditorium to hear about our new district-required class requirements. So there was freshman futures for 9th graders, computer science for 10th graders, and college career life readiness for 11th graders. While each of these classes definitely do seem like they'd have benefits to students, the way that the new requirements were implemented caused a lot of issues. So at these class meetings, which happened roughly 2 weeks before the year ended, we were given a slip of paper and told us that we had the next 20 minutes to decide which of our classes for the next year we were going to drop in order to accommodate those new requirements. And the way that happened was just so frustrating for students. We went back to our classes after those meetings, and we had students were just having venting sessions to our teachers because it was just very frustrating how rushed it was at the end of the year. Just something about some of those classes that were added, and this is coming from student forum reports. This is the feedback that I've heard from the students who come to me. So the freshmen feel that freshman futures isn't a great use of their time because we already have high school orientation programs. So at East we call it Hound Pack, but it's essentially a link crew. And I believe that there's a similar program at Denfeld, and I think freshmen would be better served with time for another elective or a study hall. it's actually kind of unclear to me what's taught in that class, so I'd love to become more informed on it. But anytime I've asked a student about what they've done in there, they get stuck on telling me how frustrated they are with it before I hear about what they're actually learning. As for 10th grade computer science, the feedback I've heard the most is that the curriculum taught doesn't necessarily align with what they're being tested on, which most students suspect came from just how rushed the requirement was. As it stands, most of the students in the class don't really want to be taking it, which makes the environment in there a little bit worse for the students that really would be interested to take it as an elective. And it's not an option to the upperclassmen who would want to take computer science. It's only for those 10th graders, is my understanding of it. And then from my personal experience, I took College Career Life Ready 11, or we call it CCLR, and it does offer a select few useful lessons, but most students, including myself, found themselves in a class that felt like a study hall with some busy work. The continuity across all of these requirements is that they really did feel like an afterthought. The students lost opportunities, and the rush nature of the decision to implement schedule changes created a lot of student resentment. I feel like a lot of the discussions I hear among students are feeling really frustrated with how that was decided. I think that kids, of all the types of decisions that students will engage with, decisions about our schedules and our class requirements are going to be what you're going to get the most engagement on. I don't think there really was much student engagement last spring because we didn't know that any of this was being considered until we were asked which class we were dropping. But on a much more positive note, I do think that the switch to 7 hours at the high school level has been really beneficial. That's what I've heard in student forum. That's what I've experienced personally. I wouldn't be able to take all the classes I do without 7 hours. And I think that it opens up a lot of opportunities, whether that's for another elective or for a study hall or an early release for some lucky upperclassmen. We still miss Wynn and aren't really sure what to do about it, but I'm hopeful that there can be some conversations in the future about thinking of alternatives that can better serve students. We are currently in our last full week of the school year, and the anticipation is very obvious. I've seen a lot of engagement from students this year, just across a ton of different activities, events, and I'm just really excited to see what's to come. And that's all I have for you tonight.
Thank you, Representative Dean. Really appreciate it. And you mentioned, and we've actually had conversation at the high school quality leadership team with our labor management group, and I think that they were wondering if this is just the sentiment of a few people or a few outspoken people, but I think you've exemplified that there are quite a few people that have addressed concerns, and I think it might be beneficial for us to re-listen to your comments tonight as a group and consider that just kind of some of the feedback that you're hearing. And we've also talked about how can we further empower and give more voice to our students. And 2 weeks ago, Director Larva and myself met with you, and we talked about, there was just a rough draft plan and some things that we talked about what it could look like as far as putting together a intra-city student council for next year, and really excited about that. So looking at having several representatives from each of the schools and having them either elected or selected. We wanted to make sure, I think all of us were trying to make sure that we had plurality of perspective and it wasn't just, kind of one type of student that emerged, the popular student or the popular with teachers students, but trying to figure out how can we make sure that there are multiple voices in the room. That we would use this spring and early fall for some of the planning and implementation, but then next year that would be really rolling ahead more solidly. But 2 weeks ago is when we met, and we want to make sure that we have, I'd like to have, if possible, another meeting before the end of the school year so that we could make sure that we're ready for the fall. So that's something that we're working on, but we also have graduations and things. But I think it's really important not to lose sight of this, and I want to say thanks to Director Larva for putting together some initial plans, but also sometimes we talk about things as being a straw dummy to kick around, like basically somebody puts together a draft of ideas, but we don't want it to be seen as this is the only way we can do this. This is something that, if it's going to be about student voice, we want to have student voice in the creation of it as well as the implementation too. So I think it's important for us to listen, because you are, in many ways, the customer and consumer of what we put together, and making sure that we have that opportunity is important for us, so that we could better our system and improve and make sure that we're serving every student every day. As a district, in our strategic roadmap, we also talk about what are the desired daily experiences of our families and of our staff, but really what it comes down to being very important is what are the desired daily experience of you, our students, and making sure that you have voice in that is integral to us making decisions and for us being good servants to the board and community. So I'm looking forward to next year and the remainder of this year putting that together. And I also appreciate the diligence with which you work to try and make sure that you're lifting voices of multiple perspective. So, with that said, when we think about voices and think about improvement, we have some great news related to our graduation rates. And the graduation rates for our class of 2024, those were the graduates from last year. And if you remember, and for our public too, that was the group that started in the fall, that we were just coming into the first fall in COVID. And so many of our students started remotely and spent much of their year in remote or a little bit of hybrid, and then we came back in person. And so when I think about the resilience that those students showed, you as well, you're a year behind that group, but you also had many things to consider as you were finishing your 8th grade year as well. But when we look at our graduation rates, again, we've got some really, really positive news, and we've been celebrating this in the community, and I've listed them here in order of just the number of graduates, from the greatest number to the least number of improvement over time. So the Duluth Area Learning Center had a significant growth of 34.3 percentage points. And you could really think about that as a 100% increase too, if you looked at it as going from 34% to nearly 70%. That's a doubling of their graduates, which is really outstanding. The Academic Excellence Online, they went from 79.5 to 88.9, which is nearly 10% improvement. Our ALC Independent Study, they're making progress at 4%. We have Denfeld going up 2.5%, and we have East going up 1.1%. So those are our students, and this is based on graduates within a 4-year period. We know a lot of people, I've had a number of family members and others, sometimes it takes a little more time to graduate, and we want to make sure that we're thinking about our 7-year graduates and our 5-year graduates, but this is based on the 4-year graduation rate. And it wasn't just our traditionally successful students. When we look at the historically underserved students that we have, there was significant growth in those groups. So if we look at 4.2% for all students, when we look at 2 or more races, that was a growth of 12.4%. And Hispanic students went up 10.2. Our Black students went up 9.1. Our American Indian students went up 7.8. And our white students went up 3.6. So sometimes people close gaps by having, the white students drop and meet, but we've had a better serving of our historically underserved students and raised our rates with many groups at nearly 10% each, which is, I'm really proud of our students. I'm really proud of our staff and our families for supporting those students. And when we look at, you look at free and reduced lunch versus non-free and reduced lunch, again, you see with our free and reduced lunch rate, that went up by over 10%. Yet our non-free and reduced lunch students went up nearly 2%. But and you have to think, sometimes when you look at, and I'm going to go back a couple of slides, you might say, oh, well, how come East only went up 1%? Well, they went from 94.3% to 95.4%. It's hard to make 10% growth if you don't have 10% left to finish. So that still represents significant growth there. And same with our, when we look at our economic status here with the free and reduced lunch versus non-free and reduced lunch. When you have 92.7% going from 91 to 92.7, that's a pretty significant closing of the gap there. But it's also great to see over 10% with our free and reduced lunch students. And you see again, when you look at our white students, free and reduced versus non, when you look at our black students at over 20% growth, these scores, Hispanic at 31.2%, these growth areas are really, really significant. We do see a drop here in our Hispanic non-free and reduced lunch. That's a smaller cell size, and I'm not sure the exact cell size, actually 26. So that could represent a small handful of students, but it's still important for us to keep an eye on that as well. Then when we look at special education versus non-special education, again, we see growth in all the areas. And again, look at our black students at 13.6. Those are black special education students went up 13.6. We look at 2 or more races of our non-special ed going up 17.7, and our Hispanic students going up nearly 11%, but growth in every single area. I'm really, really impressed with the work that our students are doing and the success that they're seeing. And this is not based on just continuing to do what we've always done. I think that when people ask me during different interviews, what do you think the difference is? I think there were a number of things. I think that when we went through the pandemic, we learned how important it was to focus on engagement and making sure that what we're teaching was relevant and interesting and students were engaged, and we recognized that it wasn't just about seat time, but I think even more importantly, we learned the importance of relationship and the importance of being in each other's presence. I think those things were things that we learned and really changed our practices based partly on that. Then we look at, again, this is a similar comparison here with our free and reduced lunch versus non-free and reduced lunch, just alone without the special ed portion. So these slides are broken down into separate slides, basically, of what I just showed you. But when we look at the 4-year graduation rate, again, when we look at who's graduating, we have nearly 80%. The remaining students, there are nearly 10% that are continuing. I'm always concerned, no matter how many students are in the dropout range, that if there's one student in the dropout range, that is too many students from my perspective, and also making sure the unknown category. I think it's important for us to always follow up with our families and find out what is happening, and I know our social workers and counselors and administrators are working to do so and working to reconnect. I think it's important as well when we think about things like adult education to remember that adult education serves students who maybe have not been historically as successful in graduation. We want to make sure that we're still focusing on allowing students to have another opportunity for graduating, and that we're valuing those students the same as we would value other students. So those graduates, again, the definitions are here. Graduate is somebody graduating within 4 years, entering as a 9th grader. You know, how we counted in Mars. Continuing means that you don't graduate in 4 years, but you continue to be enrolled and you're working towards a 5, 6, or 7-year graduation. Dropout is somebody who is no longer part of that cohort, and unknown is that there's no enrollment, but we're not sure in Mars and they haven't entered into another system. So those are students that we really need to make sure that we're tracking. But again, to have 4.25 graduation rate increase of all of our students and many of our historically underserved students at nearly 10% in every single category, almost every single category, we had pretty significant growth. So I'm very proud of our team, very proud of our students, very proud of our staff and our families, and of the board, because I think that we have focused on a strategic roadmap and making sure that we're upgrading our curriculum. You'll hear in our committee the whole report about what we're doing with our English language arts programming. All of those little incremental changes add up over time and continue to lift for the success of our students. So our leadership teams, our students, staff, and can't forget about the board and what you've done as well. But it all comes down to our students and their resilience and strength. So that was the good news. The interesting news, I won't say bad news, are our legislative updates. There's a special legislative session that's required to finish our 2-year budget. As you know, yesterday was the close of the regular legislative session, and so they're working to finalize things if possible, and it looks like they'll have a special legislative session. There were several key budget bills that were not yet passed, including education. There's an omnibus education bill that also needs approval at this point. And so basically right now, there's kind of a hashing out between the House and the Senate as far as what are the Senate ideas, what are the House ideas, and how are they going to come together to resolve the differences in the remaining bill. And they have an agreement or a deadline that they need to finish by 5 o'clock tomorrow. Otherwise, they will go into a special session. So we'll see what occurs with that, but we're watching very closely. The Senate passed the omnibus pension bill. Remember, we talked last time about the pension reform. So there was a passing of the omnibus pension bill, 55-12, and the House passed it with a 133-1 vote. The bill enhances benefits for teacher retirement fund, and the key provisions basically include lowering the age for enhanced early retirement from 62 to 60, and reducing the percentage reduction from 6% to 5%, and also lowering the age for early retirement reduction from 62 to 60, increasing employer contributions to TRA with the state covering a portion of the cost. So we're still waiting to see how that shakes out exactly, but I think it's important for us because what we're seeing is we had a large number of teachers who were highest up on the pay scale and most experienced, which is a positive aspect in one regard, but if they were staying longer than they wanted to because they couldn't retire because of the financials, that also could be very costly for school districts. So you might be paying a teacher at $75,000 or $80,000 a year as opposed to having a new teacher start at a lower wage. So there's a pretty significant impact of millions of dollars for each individual district and billions for the state. So pension reform is the right thing to do for our hardworking teachers. You know, we heard about the preschool teacher that had worked 49 years, and you think about all the service that they provided. It's important for us to think about how can we make sure that all of our teachers are well cared for as they retire as well. So that was nice to see in the update there. And that concludes my superintendent report. Any questions?
What are we looking at? Who's calling? Are you calling?
Member Lowell.
Okay. Just some celebrations for all of the things that you report on and are interested in. So a couple of things, like what strikes me about the increase in our graduation rates, and also from reading the Minneapolis Star Tribune a little bit, that these increases in graduation rates are seen in districts across our state, which just gives me like great news. But it's like, so the money that was flowed into schools during COVID that allowed us, I mean, we did have a lot of learning loss, but you know, in the whole context of things, we've struggled with many students even before COVID with learning loss and reading gaps and achievement gaps and graduation gaps. And so we were given this money, the school districts across the state, but certainly our district applied those funds appropriately and meaningfully, and there was some really intentional interventions and curriculum and service. So we see those things, and so you know, it just kind of reminds me that I can remember talking with a legislator, you know, maybe shortly after the 2022 session where there was this historic funding to education. And my comment back to Senator Zwazinski was that there was, certainly he thought there was historic monies given to districts, but I also said there was historic needs. And so, because they were kind of wondering why we were back asking for more money, and it's like, because we should have had this money to begin with. So So thanks for the presentation on graduation rates and then link to legislation. And the thing I want to say about legislation is just a reminder that you can tune in to Friday morning. MSBA does a pretty wonderful kind of legislation update. So the things that are going to happen, tonight and tomorrow are going to be reported and given some background and depth, and maybe they'll know a little bit of what's going on even next week if there's anything, and that's 9 a.m. And they always send us out an email, and that would be great. And then I just want to kind of go back, if I can, to the dropout and the unknown as we look at our graduation rates and just ask a couple of questions like, so it does say that when somebody officially drops out, they are counted at whichever high school that they attended the most. And I just, want our public to realize that that's an interesting part of the data. And is there any way you pull that out, Superintendent, where you can make some insights into how that affects our graduation rates in Duluth when you look at our dropout rates? Do we figure that in? Do we know that? That's one question, and if you don't, I'm not asking this thinking that it's the answer. It's just kind of like, what are we doing there? And then the unknown makes me think, like, how do we know they're unknown, really? Like, if they're unknown, are they still on our roll? Oh, Jen Larva's coming back. Are they still on, like, our class lists because we don't know that they've dropped, they're just not attending? And then how does that figure in as well to how we collect data on graduation rates? Thanks.
Are you okay with me taking this?
Please do.
All right. So I did sit in with the MDE when they were explaining all of these different categories. I do think there needs to be some clarification for some of these so that you're aware of some of them. The continuing one, just to let you know, we do have students that we know are going to be continuing. We have some that go on into our bridge program. A lot of special education students are in that program. So they're not counting for the 4-year, but they do count for, like, by the time we get to the 7-year, we're looking at that. So that's kind of where that one lies. Dropouts are usually those 15-day drops. That's usually when we're finding out that they end up being called dropouts. So if we end up doing a 15-day drop on a student and they don't end up enrolling somewhere else, then they're still tied to us. That could be that they went to another state and went to school. It could be any number of reasons. They could have really truly dropped out. So it is important for us to take a look at which students are in there. And to your question, we do get a spreadsheet with all of the student names, with all of their MARS N codes. And I've been doing some dipping into that with some of our principals just to kind of say, like, do some sampling, like, where did this kid go and why is this classified that way? And some of it is that they left the state, or, like, they kind of know some of those things about those kids. Unknown is a very interesting category. A lot of times they have left Minnesota, and we have a lot of them when it comes to our students that are enrolling in some of our care and treatment programs. So if you think about, we have this wonderful program that is housed in our district. Well, it's not housed in our district, but we provide the instruction, and that's at Amber Wing. So if a student from Wisconsin, any of the towns in Wisconsin come in, they end up enrolling in Minnesota for those 15 to 20 days that they're at Amber Wing, and then they go back to their home school, but they become unknown to us because they are no longer in the state of Minnesota and in Wisconsin. They go back to their home school. They never show up again in Minnesota as far as an enrollment goes. So that was really interesting to kind of dig into some of that data. So it's pretty impossible to get to 100% a graduation rate when you think about it, because there's so many different factors that happen. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to clean some of that up for you so you can understand why would it be unknown? And a lot of them they're coming to us for like a short period of time and they're leaving. That also happens with our Arrowhead Academy. So a lot of our care and treatment ones, we end up with unknowns.
Thank you. And I also want to say how proud we are of those students that are continuing, all of our students, but the students that are continuing. Sometimes there, as you've mentioned, sometimes there are significant other factors that are weighing in people's lives. And sometimes it does take 5 or 6 years, depending on what the scenario is. And for students to remain in a continuing status and continue to work hard and want to graduate and work hard to graduate, we want to celebrate and lift those students as well.
Member Banks?
Sure. Thank you very much. And I think this is for Superintendent Magus. I'm very excited about the graduation rates across the board. My only question is, how do we celebrate this as a board? Because we need to keep this momentum going, and I think some kind of celebration to recognize this at the board level and beyond, I think is important. Is there a possibility for something like that to happen?
I think we have promoted it pretty heavily within our own social media. We've promoted it in various media interviews. I have to say it's one of my proudest weeks that I had when we were sharing and doing, multiple interviews and lots of opportunity to celebrate the work of our staff. But I also felt like it was kind of showered on me, so to speak, and it's not about me, it's about our staff, it's about our students, it's about our leaders, and how can we make sure we have that celebration. And you never know when people are gonna talk about it. There was a chamber luncheon that I went to the other day, and I was thinking like, I don't know if I can take the time to go to this chamber luncheon, but Matt Baumgardner, the head of the chamber, went on for 5 or 6 minutes about Duluth Public Schools and the work we're doing here and the great changes that we've had. So I think there are people celebrating in the community, but I think it would be up to the board to think about what that celebration could be. I'm glad to think about what that could be, but also I know Adele Wellens, our communication officer, did quite a bit with putting things on social media, but we'd be very open to considering what such a celebration could look like. But I do think it's important to remember. I also think that we want to celebrate the graduation rates going up, and we want to keep that momentum going. Sometimes there are dips that happen, and so we can't guarantee that there won't be a slip or a dip with a different group here or there, especially groups with small cell size. But we are deeply, deeply committed to that every student, every day. It's way more than a slogan, and we have to make sure it's a way of being in supporting our students. I also think sometimes it comes down to sticking to the hard decisions that we have to make sometimes, that really thinking about our strategic roadmap and how are we staying committed to those elements, and how are we making sure that we're doing things like focusing on our action cards and having the board hold us accountable during progress monitoring at the committee of the whole, like make us do the hard work that needs to be done. We want to, but sometimes accountability is important too. It's very important. But I would leave that to the board. If you have thoughts about how you would like to celebrate, we would be very open to what that could look like.
Member Micasell?
I want to echo some of the things that Member Lofald mentioned, like, if we had that funding, long-term baseline all the time, like how much progress we would be able to make in some of our numbers. But then not only to that funding, to a lot of the different initiatives that our administrators have brought into our district. We know education, there's long-term results that it takes time to actually see in these kind of percentages. And hopefully this is the beginning of seeing those numbers rise. So just expressing gratitude to those new, fresh ideas, and then the staff who's embracing them, and really doing the heavy lifting of working through that with our students, but then also just our kids. Some of that's like personal to me because I had a graduate in this class last year, and just so proud of their resiliency, as you mentioned, and everything that they overcame within the pandemic, but recognizing that this is their work and this is their time to shine as well. And then lastly, yes, so proud of all of these increases, but still so much room to go, especially for some of our different segments of students. And so always keeping the eye on the prize of trying to get those up as well. So thanks to everyone.
Thank you. If I could comment on that too. Yes, it's very important to note some of our student populations, you know, the rate is not the same, and even though we're closing gap, we still need to feel a sense of shock and urgency when we look at some of the numbers too. I mean, when we look at our free and reduced American Indian graduation rate at being 45.3%, for example, you have a better chance of flipping a coin and calling it right than you do graduating if you are a poor American Indian student here in the district. So we have to think about how are we going to hold ourselves accountable? How are we going to make sure that we're serving every student? And I think that sometimes we see, unfortunately, patterns that play out in so many districts. If you're poor, you have a lesser chance of graduating. If you're a person of color, you have a lesser chance of graduating. If you're special education, you have a lesser chance of graduating. And that's on us systemically to figure out how are we going to change. And I think that's why I was trying to use the term historically underserved as opposed to at risk, because at risk kind of gives ownership of that to the student rather than the system, which has the deep responsibility of delivering for every student.
Member Williams.
I just have one more question for Director Larva. That unknown number, do we, as a district, do we still have exchange students sometimes? Would that fall into that number as well? Like students, foreign students, do we get those in the district anymore?
So usually our foreign exchange students have already graduated from their program in their country for the most part, I think. At least that's been my experience when I was, and I'm looking at Rosie because she might have more information about that than I do. So I don't think I don't know that they get an actual graduation diploma. I'm not really sure right now. I don't think they actually get a diploma from us, so they would not count in that aspect. Right?
Yeah, that's my understanding too, and it's more ceremonial when they're walking through.
I just want to take a minute because to be in education and to be an educator is to be an optimist, right? So this is very, it feels good. And then I love to also be an educator, and to be in education is to be an optimist and to strive. So we are celebrating these incredible numbers, and we are striving to make sure that every student gets that piece, gets that graduation, so that optimism while we continue to strive, because we can't strive to make this district a better place for every student unless we hold on to our optimism. So I want to celebrate, and I want to remember the students that we didn't do our best for. And to our students, all the time, what you hear is all the things that you aren't. Well, these kids can't read a book anymore, and they're coming into college, and they can't do remedial math, and they can't do this, and they can't do that, and they can't do this. That is more a reflection upon us as an adult as it is as you as kids, right? So I just want to celebrate and think about the journey that you all have came through to get to this. And I want to lift up all the things you are, which is resilient, which is high emotional intelligence, which are in different skills than the adults around you have. So I want to lift that up and celebrate that in this moment, and then remind the adults that we have to shift our view, that sometimes it's not a problem with what our kids are not, but what we're not. So this is just incredibly wonderful data to celebrate, and I want to lift our staff up, because to continue and hold on to that optimism through what we all have navigated through and what we are going to have to navigate through in the next little bit can be challenging. So hold on to that optimism. That's what I'd like to say. So thank you.
Thank you. And just thinking about that and thinking that just a few minutes ago, our teachers that spent an extra 3 hours here investing their time and effort in early literacy skills, they just finished, after a long, long day, they came for 3 more hours to work on honing those skills, knowing that investment in early literacy is one of the biggest payoffs we have. We have another celebration tomorrow. So the momentum we have, we are building on our future of trying to deliver for each and every student. So we will make sure that that remains central to what we do, and we appreciate the guidance of the board through this process as well.
I don't see any other comments, correct? Okay. Moving on from the superintendent's reports, we have our schedule of meetings and events, and you can find that listed in Board Book. And just as a reminder to our school board and to our community, next week, if I'm correct, on May 27th, we'll have another committee of the whole meeting. That starts at 4:30, and that's really interesting to talk about the juxtaposition to our graduation rates, to now have to talk about some of the challenges that we're facing with our budget. So next week on Tuesday, we'll have that committee of the whole meeting where Executive Director Zunich will probably be the star of the show as we will talk about our budget. So that's what's coming up, and then starting in June, we start June 3rd with our we start the whole graduation ceremonies, all the wonderful time for celebration. So moving on from schedule of events, now we have a report from our standing committee, and I'm assuming Assistant Superintendent Bonds, you're still going to be doing reporting on the monthly committee of the whole meeting, am I correct?
Actually,
is
he
that-
asked me to
Oh, okay,
take it.
never mind, Anthony, we got
Sometimes, I apologize, sometimes the awkwardness of hybrid can be
100%,
kind of
yeah.
sketchy. And actually, as I was going to mention Assistant Superintendent Bonds, because oftentimes, as superintendent, I get the interview and I'm on TV talking about our graduation rates, but really Assistant Superintendent Bonds and our directors and our principals, they are the ones that have really lifted the work. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody involved that has been part of that process. But the Committee of the Whole report, we had several different topics. The first one was the Denfeld Indigenous Cohort, and we talk about responsiveness. We recognize that the graduation rate for our Indigenous students, particularly at Denfeld, is a historically underserved area. And so we created, we're trying to address things in new and creative ways. And so we had a presentation on the Indigenous Cohort, which is a group of Indigenous students, Native American students at Denfeld High School that take many of their classes together and receive additional support. And the ratio, student-to-teacher ratio is much better. They are taking a Career Foundations SCL class. They're taking their 9th and 10th grade English. They're taking 9th and 10th grade social studies. They're getting science credit and math credit. Those students are working together, and we heard a lot about the positive aspects of what's occurring there. It's also important for us to be reflective as we try something new. I think we need to learn from our mistakes and fail forward and make improvements. And there were some suggestions as far as what that can look like, but I thought that presentation was really well delivered. We did hold on our youth vaping piece. We're going to bring that forward in the future, partly because of there were some policy questions, and we wanted to make sure that we were clear on the difference between the vaping policy and what we're doing with the policy committee. And the next report was on secondary English language arts, and as a former high school English teacher and somebody who's worked on language arts adoption committees, there's a lot of work that goes into adoption. And I'm very pleased to say that our 30-plus-year-old curriculum that we've had in English language arts is going to be replaced. And we went through the process of looking at the several years that were used for needs assessment and prioritization of curriculum, piloting of resources, and then looking at what what adoptions we were going to go forward with. And at the middle school, we're looking at My Perspectives, which the adoption for that will be about $320,000. And the Study Sync high school curriculum will be about $375,000 roughly. And so really, it takes money to invest in new curricula, and I think it's important I think curriculum is something that sometimes it's a can that gets kicked down the road as far as investment, and I think that we've seen that unfortunately the district here has had to, delay investment in curriculum, whether it's been social studies or science and math, and I think some of the investments that we're making now are going to pay off into the future for our students. Then we had a presentation from Brenda Spartz and Jen Larva on our Minnesota Multi-Tiered Systems of Support grant, the overview for that grant. Looks like the grant will be up to $200,000 a year, and went through the purpose of what that grant looks like, really thinking about how are we creating safety nets for students. Basically, MTSS, Multi-Tiered Systems Support, is about making sure our universal is the best it can be, and then if students aren't successful in the universal, what is it that we're going to do to improve in those areas? And really, some of that involved training. It involved some money for some positions that hopefully the board will consider approving related to MTSS. And then there was also the information that we're going to be at a conference at the end of June. And actually, we'll be involved in several of the presentations there. So we've gone from just dipping our toes into MTSS, where now we're presenting at the state level on MTSS. We also talked about professional learning communities, PLCs, and how strong of an engine that needs to be for the district is, because really we trust our teachers. Our teachers know the best, and how do we harness their collective creativity and intelligence and work around what we're doing. The professional learning community is really the best way of doing that. And so we're in our second year of work there with our continuous improvement teams and the work they're doing with PLCs, and just really proud of those efforts. Then we went into a budget review, and Simone shared our preliminary fiscal year 2026 budget review, and went through the basic formula amounts and such. We're hoping to get, we have our next budget meeting. It's a special committee of the whole a week from today, and we're hopeful that we'll also have the results of the legislative session by then, so that some of those numbers can be plugged in as well. But we're hopeful that some of the corrections we're making in our course corrections we're making now, even though they're really, really hard, they're putting us on a more stable financial path than we've been on. So that was our committee of the whole.
Excuse me, do we have any questions related? Member Lowfald?
I was busy trying to look through my notes and the maybe consent agenda, and because I thought that I read in preparation for tonight's meeting, and Director Larva and Director Spartz can probably answer this question, but we did get your presentation at the committee of the whole, and I think I heard you maybe at the HR business last week that we did secure the grant, and you're going forward with the 2 positions, and they've been maybe even posted for hire? And is that on our agenda somewhere? I was trying to look to see. Okay, I must be just not looking at it, or, yes? It's on the consent, and I'm looking at it. Under finance, is it C2? No, that's commissioning. But where on the consent? Just looking. Not that I need to know, but, oh, the other action items, job description, MTSS, oh, okay, it's B2, okay.
So basically, they are new types of position, but what we're taking is we're taking a teacher on special assignment position and creating a DWIA position, which is district-wide instructional administrator. So basically, it turns a teacher on special assignment level position to more of like a coordinator level position. So that makes it they're still relatively inexpensive positions, but it's a year-round position. And sometimes we also hear from our teaching staff within the teachers union that even if somebody's giving advice and guiding somebody and maybe giving peer feedback around improvement, sometimes that's not taken the right way, and so they want to hear something from somebody in a different unit. And so that's part of the rationale for it as well, is that it makes it so that it's not a teacher kind of quote unquote telling another teacher what to do, even if it's just meant as guidance. But really, we were focusing these two positions on one on elementary and one on secondary. We currently have two people in the teacher on special assignment positions that are kind of a combined role, not necessarily split elementary and secondary, but these would be split elementary and secondary. This would be going through a full hiring process, however. The people that are in those roles would, of course, be encouraged to apply, but it's something that needs to be a full and open process as well.
Thank you for that explanation. That probably helps Member Williams. Maybe we don't have to go into, I do remember hearing it explained by the directors at our HR business when I was listening to it, but it's just clarity and knowing that the grant is secured. And did we get the 200,000? Like, I think in both times I've heard it defined, it's kind of like we've asked for it. We might be getting all of it. Did we get all of it?
We have to remember, though, that grant funding sometimes can be tenuous, and so we're not basing the decision solely on this being a grant-funded position, even though 40% of the positions will be funded for the next year out of this, and there's an ongoing opportunity to fund this. So we believe it's a systemic improvement piece that is, when we look at the changes within the Teaching, Learning, and Equity Department, we have the combining of two positions in tech ed to create one director level position, which has been posted, and then we have two TOSA and one DWIA position that are turning into two DWIA and one TOSA position. So the collective net savings for the district is around $40,000. So it's a realignment, and yes, there are different positions and they're slightly different level, but it's better than cost neutral. It saves the district $40,000. And we believe that that was important for us to look at holistically during the time when we're asking for reductions in other areas.
Member Lowfald? Member Loeffler-Kemp, sorry.
That's okay. It does start with an L, you're right, Member Lofold. Yeah, I just wanted to say I really, and I hope you're hearing me, Mr. Bonds, appreciated the presentations that we had at the Committee of the Whole. All three of them were really excellent, and I just appreciated being able to bring as many people to the table, particularly with the Denfeld cohort, and then just hearing kind of the history of the adoption process, because that's a significant amount of money, and just understanding for the public to understand the work that goes into doing these adoptions was so key. So just wanted to thank you for bringing those presentations together. And then the last thing I just wanted to say, I guess, is that I'm looking forward to our Committee of the Whole meeting next week and the wonderful charts I know you'll be providing, Simone. But I also hope that we can have continued discussion on what we have been hearing from our staff and from the public on some of the proposed cuts. And I hope that those voices are heard. So I look forward to that next week. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, I'll go ahead and move on, or we will go ahead and move on to Human Resources and Business Services Committee, and Member Williams will be giving us this report.
I will, and I know that Chair Sadowski is going to watch this later, so hopefully I do an okay job. To quote Member Sadowski, we had a robust meeting last week, or whenever it was that we met on the 12th. April was busy with the posting of summer school para positions, and for the start of the posting process for next year, to date, we've posted 40 para positions, 3 food service, and 102 certified positions. In April, HR staff, along with the finance team, have been meeting with principals to review current staffing, UFAR's coding, and having discussions about next year's staffing review processes. The HR team attended several career fairs focusing on all district positions. Major fairs attended included Minnesota Educators Career Expo in Eden Prairie, St. Cloud University Career and Education Job Fair, Hermantown Chamber of Commerce Career Fair, and JET Career Fairs in both Virginia and Carleton. In addition, HR has worked closely with transportation leaders to create a bus driver training hiring process starting July 1st. We are excited to partner with them to bring this information to the general public in order to generate interest in our bus driver positions. Next. Sorry, she flows at this much better than I do. The district facilities building operations team is composed of many valuable employees, and we want to recognize the efforts especially of the East High School building operations staff. Notably, they have only been fully staffed for a week during the 24-25 year. And so nevertheless, they consistently demonstrate their commitment by ensuring the building is clean and well maintained to support all activities. So we just want to acknowledge them and give them a special shout out and thank you. And then I know we are going to talk about these in our resolutions later, but just to mention some of the donations, which there were many, many, many. Oh gosh, there's so many. I will mention them, or they will be mentioned when we do our resolutions later. But it was just cool to see all of the donations. And then one of the job descriptions was for the employee benefits and engagement coordinator that we will be hiring for. And
Sorry to correct. So
yes,
that
please
was
correct me.
I apologize, but that is just a change in the job description for
Oh,
somebody who's
yes, I'm
already
sorry, I wrote
in the
that
system, but it's just a
incorrectly.
slight change to their job description. Is that correct?
Thank you for correcting me. I do have that noted here. It's, yeah, just a change to the
I
description.
heard from behind, so I just.
Yeah, sorry about that, Director Severance. I'm not trying to give anybody a heart attack here. That was noted here. Chair Sadowski, when you're listening later, you wrote it down correctly. I just misread. Forgive me. And then active enrollment. So I made my own note. Just the significant enrollment is up from this time last year. And I mean, it's up from last year and significantly up from 22-23. I marked the page and now I can't find it. So yeah, those were the highlights that I would say.
Thank you so much, Member Williams, and you did a great job. It's not an easy thing to figure out how to do that, so thank
This
you.
book is too big.
Oh, I know.
The end.
Do we have any questions for Member Williams? Member Loeffler Kemp.
Not for Member Williams. Member Williams, but you did an excellent job. I say this a lot, I know, but I just really always appreciate, because I'm not on that committee, all of the written reports that we get from the many different departments, from nutrition to technology to facilities, and that they're very complete and give us a lot of information. So I just wanted to do a thank you to our staff for getting all those reports that are very helpful when you're not sitting on that committee, so in writing. So just a thank you. Good job. Yeah.
Seeing no further questions, I think we'll move on to the policy committee update, and Member Loeffler-Kemp.
Okay, can you hear me? Well, we had a very robust committee, too. It was a robust month of May, I guess. Just always like to say that the policy committee, again, reviewing policies is a key role of school board members. So I just have appreciated my committee and the questions and research that you do, but also other board members reaching out to us with questions as well. So I wanted to start by thanking you for that. The first item, though, is policies for first reading. And our first policy was Policy 807, which is health and safety policy. This will be referenced in the student handbook, and this policy replaces 4165, eye and face protection for staff, and 5145, eye and face protection for students. And I'll just read the purpose of the policy as we always do. And also want to thank Lexi Neff, our Health and Safety Environmental Coordinator, for her work on this policy. The purpose of this policy is to assist the school district in promoting health and safety, reducing injuries, and complying with federal, state, and local health and safety laws and regulations. And we actually had recently reviewed it in 2022. There were some name changes and committee changes, some procedure pieces that were updated to reflect what we're doing. And again, just a lot of good work was put into revising it. This, again, is the first reading, so it will come back for the second reading. No, this is the second reading. It's the first reading, yes, so it'll be coming back. Again, Policy 807. The next policy was Policy 903, Visitors to School District Buildings and Sites. This is replacing 1080, visits in schools, and 6025, volunteer in schools. And the purpose of this policy is to inform the school community and the general public of the position of the school board on visitors to school buildings and other school property. And again, it goes into a number of different categories, as our policies always do. There's a big section on volunteers. And again, this is the first reading, and so it'll be coming back next month. And again, just appreciate all the work that was done to update this policy. The next section of our meeting was policies for second reading. So we will be voting on this in our consent agenda. And this is Policy 413, Harassment and Violence, deleting 413 and 413R, and adopting this NSBA policy. And again, want to thank Teresa Severance and our HR department for the work that was done on this policy. And the purpose of this policy is to maintain a learning and working environment free from harassment and violence on the basis of race, creed, religion, national origin, sex, age, marital status, familiar status, status with regard to public assistance, sexual orientation, or disability protected class. And again, we've spent a lot of time on this policy, being very thoughtful. So again, review it if you have any other questions. But this is the second reading that we bring forward for our vote tonight in the consent agenda. And then the last policy for second reading is the bidding process, Policy 726. And I'm going to read the purpose of this policy. Bids, requests for proposals, and quotes are obtained to ensure fair competition and transparency in the procurement process. Suppliers and/or contractors are invited to submit bids or proposals meeting predetermined specifications. This allows for evaluation of pricing and criteria to select the most suitable vendor. And we added this piece based on feedback from the board, the next piece. And of the purpose. Duluth Public Schools ISD 709 is committed to providing an environment of mutual respect with a goal to ensure a diverse workplace is considered. Therefore, the winning vendor of this contract understands and agrees that their company shall comply with all applicable laws relating to discrimination in employment and be welcoming of applicants of all genders, sexual orientation, age, and race for employment with their company. And again, goes into more detail. There is not an NSBA policy on this. And just really appreciate the work that Simone and her staff did with this updated bidding process policy. And that is a renumbering from 7070. Then we had a couple policies for review, and when there are policies for review, again, it's because there's minor changes in them or some different additions, or maybe there's legislative changes. But the purpose of the website accessibility policy, and we really changed the purpose title, Duluth Public Schools recognizes its responsibility to ensure that all individuals, regardless of disability, can access the information and services provided on our websites. This policy establishes a framework for achieving and maintaining website accessibility in accordance with Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and Title II of the Americans with Disability Act of 1990. By adhering to the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines set forth by the World Wide Web Consortium, we strive to create an accessible and user-friendly online experience for all students, caregivers, and members of the community. And then again, goes through different sections, as many of our policies do, as well as the cross-references or legal references. And I want to thank Adele Wellings, our communications officer, for all the work she did in updating this. Also, we just got notice that this policy will be required federally by April of 2016 is some new news that may change, as we know. But so we will be bringing this back at some point because of that. And we will keep abreasted of any changes by Adele. And then the last policy for review was Employee Right to Know program, Policy 407. And the purpose of this policy is to provide school district employees a place of employment and conditions of employment free from recognized hazards that are likely to cause death or serious injury or harm. And we're not doing any changes to the policy. We brought it forth because there's a regulation change, and so we like to have the policy reviewed at the same time. All of what I just shared with you will be on our consent agenda. The rest of our meeting, we did have some policies that were informational shared with us, so I'll just quickly highlight those. They won't be on your consent agenda, though. And that's 604-2R, new elective courses in secondary schools. And again, we recently passed 604. I want to thank Dale Lewis for all the work he brought into this policy or regulation and policy. And then the next regulation informational was 407R, which is again the Employee Right to Know program that we talked about just a few minutes ago. And there were committee name changes were some of the things on here, as well as making sure there are clear expectations throughout the district. So that was for informational. And then we had a number of forms at the end that were, again, informational that we had provided input on, and changes were made. So the first one was updating our 413F, which was our harassment violence complaint form, and we made a few changes to that. Our second one was updating 515F, which is a student record update form, which included a change with the new enrollment center. And then C416, attachment H, that has to do with our drug and alcohol policy with our drivers. And then the last one is the general complaint form and harassment form. And so there were some updates there, and all of these forms are electronically on our website. So that was our very robust meeting. We will be meeting again on June 10th, and we will not be having a July meeting, but we will be doing a longer meeting, either the end of June or the 1st of August, to focus on more policies at this point. And I also want to remind board members, if you have questions before our June 10th policy meeting, when you get the information, it's really helpful to get those questions Monday morning so that staff have time to respond before our Tuesday meeting. So, thank you.
Do we have any questions over the policy meeting? Superintendent Magus?
Not a question, but just very thankful for the policy committee. I think that we've been able to accomplish quite a bit, and we've also talked about taking a larger chunk of time at some point to maybe work on retiring some of the 1,000 series policies, because it's, with all the legislative changes and things like that over the past few years, it's taken a lot for us to be able to stay abreast and catch up in those areas, and really appreciate the work of that group, and also appreciate the pause in having a policy meeting in July. It's also been historical practice that we don't have a committee of the whole in July as well, but we're certainly open to having one if the board deems it something that they would like. But generally, we've had a HR business meeting because there are some things with LTFM and budget and things that need to be worked on. But otherwise, we've generally had a regular board meeting. So if that's the practice that the board would like us to follow, we'd be glad to follow that, or we'd be glad to meet whatever other needs the board has.
Member Loeffler-Camp?
I just wanted to wrap up by also just thanking Patty Paquette for all the work that she does to prepare for the policy meetings, to make the changes that recommendations are being made, and keep kind of the master of the policies. Also, our senior leadership team brings a lot of these policies forward and works with different teams and committees throughout the district, and that doesn't go unnoticed, the work you put in to bringing these policies to us. So thank you.
Seeing no further questions or comments, we can move on to general board committee updates. And this is a time we open it up for our fellow board members to talk about any committees that they serve on as part of their role on the school board. Member Banks.
Sure, thank you very much. I serve on the Transportation Services Advisory Committee, and I just wanted to hand out a document here. Thank you for helping with that. As you see here, it says special procedures areas where the 8-way light is not used. This document has not been updated for a while, and so we are now in the process of updating this document, and hopefully we'll bring it for approval. I believe it has to come to the board, but we will certainly go through the proper protocols before we get to the board. But I wanted you all to at least take a look at this. And if you have any questions, either email those questions to me and I can forward them on. And then we are also hoping for, at some point, a policy that's needed for bus turnaround. And what we've noticed is that there are some of our drivers that are turning around in private areas and driveways, and that's a no-no, and we believe we need a policy, a stated policy, or some kind of resolution or whatever that might take, so that it is official. There's nothing official regarding that right now. So that's where we are, and then the Transportation Department will have a end of the year celebration and cookout, that is on June 6th. We met today at 10:30. Thank you.
Member Banks, may I ask you a question?
Yes.
What is an eight-way light? Does anybody, what is an eight-way light?
So that's the lights that are on the bus.
Yeah,
And so they come on, they flash. That's what they call that.
okay, the eight-way light.
Yes.
Great, thank you so much.
I learned that today myself. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, 8 of them, that's cool. Oh, yeah. Member Loeffler Kemp.
Yeah, I would just give a quick update on the Quality Steering Committee leadership team, that you have 2 members of the board that serve on these 3-hour or more meetings. And so Jill Lofold was able to join us by phone. I was there in person. And you heard a little bit tonight of some of the topics that were addressed and discussed at this meeting, but I just wanted to highlight it's another space where discussion with our staff and administration and board are there to listen. And so conversations around the 7-period day, around electives and required classes happened, around our restorative practices and trainings were some of the areas that were discussed. And as board members, you have access to the minutes of those meetings. So make sure you review them. But I just wanted to highlight your 2 board members who were present. We were hearing and listening, and as were many of our administrative staff. So thank you.
Member Williams?
I thought you were going to ask for questions first. I didn't want you to think I had a question. Ask for questions.
Any questions? Great, Member Williams?
So April and the beginning of May have been very busy, so I have not been able to attend all of my regular committee meetings, but I did attend the Head Start Policy Council in Member Sadowski's stead, as she had a conflict. And major topics of conversation where they had their, they were planning for and talking about the end of year celebration, which would have happened last Tuesday now. It sounded like it was going to be a great event. I obviously did not go. I do not have a kiddo in Head Start, but they provided a meal and entry to the zoo, and it just sounded like good family fun time. And then there was a lot of discussion around Director Sherry Williams' retirement. So that was bittersweet. And I know they have a dinner coming up for the whole council, I think, next week. I will not be going, even though it sounded yummy and fancy, but it feels not right to just show up for that one when that's not my committee. So that's what I intended.
Thank you, Member Williams. Member Lofold?
So just a reflection too, and this is not a committee I sit on, but we were, the community was invited, and I think there was a email that might have included school board members to the American Indian Parent and Community Opportunity for Title VI funding, and just generally, community was invited, staff was invited, families were invited to hear and just discuss and give input as to what American Indian families and community would like to see in our district. So it was just nice to be present. I think they appreciate when there's a school board member in attendance. So that was nice to see. I know that some of us, I did not, but some of you went to the Gold Find Teacher Award, and that was a celebration. I was at another celebration at Denfeld because the choir concert was there. So lots of opportunity to get out in our districts. And we've been really present as well, representing all of us on the board. But we have just kind of, I think, concluded our kind of March, April, May visits to 11 of our buildings. So we were present for school site visits at 11 of our of our buildings. There's 13 buildings that we house with elementary, middle school, and high school. We also have residentials, and I'm sorry that we didn't get it to as many residentials this spring, but we were there in the fall. But I really appreciate board members that are able to attend. I feel like the site visits are appreciated by our principals, and teachers really love seeing us come into their buildings. And I hope we can continue kind of that intentional getting out in the school sites. But again, I understand that some of us work a lot and have a 40-hour work week that you can't always take time off. So we represent all of you and share all of the good things that are going on.
Thank you, Member Lofeld. Member Loeffler-Kemp.
Yeah, I thank you for sharing that, Member Lofield. I was just going to lift up really the Gold Find Award night as well, as a wonderful opportunity to hear our principals lift up the teachers that were nominated for that award and just share all the passion and creativity. It's such a wonderful event, and thank you again, Adele, for how your great work on social media, sharing that ceremony to everybody. It's just such a great event, and so thank you to the Goldfine family, but also to the Duluth Superior Community Foundation for their support. And then with the school visits, yes, they are great to get out to, and there actually is one more that I haven't put on the Google Doc just because I was finalizing the times of it. But Friday, I had set up a meeting at Lakewood Elementary, and it happens to be their environmental day. So they have a lot of different activities that you can come to. So if you're interested in and available on Friday, let me know, and I can get you more of the details of the day. Thank you.
Superintendent Magus.
Yes, just wanted to share some feedback from our principals. They shared at their recent DPA meeting that they really appreciate the visits from school board members, really appreciate the opportunity to showcase what they're doing, and just wanted to thank you for that. They also appreciate when we can coordinate the visits when we can, just because sometimes they might have like multiple visits from different board members, and so kind of appreciating those efforts of staying coordinated. But they just wanted to reiterate that you're always welcome. They always want you to come, and really appreciate the support that you show them as leaders of their building.
And on April 30th from 1 to 3:30, the district, including most of our district administrators and Member Banks and myself, were invited out to Fond du Lac, where we had our tribal consultation. I just want to thank the tribe for their hospitality and allowing us to come in and have some frank and productive conversations, I would say. It is a time where the district spends listening and responding. So I think that's important to talk about, is the role of what that looks like. It was a time where our American Indian departmental staff really did a phenomenal job, considering that a large number of them haven't been doing this work in the district for very long. We were welcomed, we had really good conversations, and thought about clarity as we move forward in these tribal consultations, how we collectively work together to make sure that we are using them and optimizing that time together to really spend it thinking about how our Indigenous students matriculate through our schools. So I think it was a great opportunity for us to have those conversations, and that's what I would say. Looking forward to the next tribal consultation, and having Member Williams as she sits on the APEC Parent Committee. So it was a good time, and on the drive back, I think we had a lot of reflection. So yes, I want to just publicly thank the tribe for their hospitality and the good and productive conversation that we had. Member Banks, do you have anything to add? Do you think we? Great. Okay, thank you. Do we have any other committee updates, or should we move on to the consent agenda?
Just one other comment.
Yes, members. Superintendent
problem.
Magus.
So this Friday is our Association of Metropolitan School Districts Board of Directors meeting. I won't be able to attend that, but just wanted to open it up to you as board chair or other board members. If you want to attend, I can make sure that the link is sent. There's always a really good presentation, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was a very informative update on legislative changes. So quite often they have chairs of committees and other groups there. So if you're interested in attending, just let me know, and I'll make sure I send on the invite.
Thank you. Can you, Superintendent Magus, let us know what time that is on Friday? Do you have that?
Yes, 7:30 to 9 a.m. It's a hybrid meeting. They have in person at the Cure Center down in I forget the actual name of the particular burb, but it's New Canada or Canada, or that area.
All right, so now, seeing no further updates, and thank you for everything. Oh, yeah, okay. Let's move on to our consent agenda. We need a motion to accept the consent agenda. So moved. Member Lofald has the motion. Do we have a second? Second. Member Loeffler has a second. Do we have any discussion on the consent agenda? The discussion I have is it's 8:10, and look at us move today. That's my discussion for the consent agenda. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of passing the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We have approved our consent agenda. Next, we'll move on from our resolution from our committee reports, and we have the first resolution, acceptance of donations to the Duluth Public Schools, and I would like to call on Member Micasell.
Yes, I move Resolution B-5-25-4096. The resolution is acceptance of donations to Duluth Public Schools, whereas Minnesota Statute 4650.03 requires a school district to accept donations by resolution expressed in the terms prescribed by the donor in full, and whereas acceptance of the donations in accordance with the donor's terms is in the best interest of the Duluth Public Schools, now therefore be it resolved that Duluth Public Schools does accept the below described donations from said organizations in accordance with the terms set forth herein. Be it further resolved that the Duluth Public Schools wishes to extend its grateful appreciation to these various individuals and organizations. And various individuals and organizations have really stepped up in this report here today. We have 4 or 5 full pages of donations from individual donors, from companies and businesses across our city, going towards Teacher Appreciation Week, going towards musicals at our high schools, going towards our HOSA, Student Association of Healthcare, Future Healthcare Workers. The amount of generosity that we have in our community is just astounding and is so appreciated. We also have individual donors for transportation for our Head Starts, 8th grade donations for individual classes at Lincoln Park, in-kind donations of school supplies for art use. Lincoln Park received a number of individual donations for 6th grade and educational enrichments. The list goes on, and I encourage everyone to check out the list in our board book, and then also consider becoming one of these wonderful businesses or individuals in our next donation report.
Thank you, Member Micasell. So Member Micasell moved. Do we have a second? Member Williams, second. Do we have any discussion? Seeing no discussion. Oh, Superintendent Magus, do you have discussion?
No, I have the inability to turn my light up.
I can understand that. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of Resolution 8, what am I at? B-5-25-4096, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Yay. Next, we have a resolution for acceptance of grants and awards to the Duluth Public Schools, and I'd like to call on Member Banks.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move Resolution B-5-25-4097, acceptance of grant awards to Duluth Public Schools, whereas Minnesota Statute 465.03 requires a school district to accept grants by resolution expressed in the terms prescribed by the donor in full, and whereas acceptance of the grant is in accordance with the donor's terms is in the best interest of the Duluth Public Schools. Now therefore be it resolved that the Duluth Public Schools does accept the below described grant from said organization in accordance with the terms set forth herein. Be it further resolved that the Duluth Public Schools wishes to extend its grateful appreciation to this organization. There are two organizations, one Project Joy for Duluth Preschool in the amount of $1,000 for supplemental food for family events and library collaboration, and then another from ICCOD. I'm not sure what that is, but that's for Ordean East Special Education Teacher in the amount of $1,531.75. This is a field trip for special education students to attend a Duluth Huskies baseball game.
Member Banks has moved Resolution B-5-254097. Do we have a second?
Second.
Member Mike Cassell has seconded. Do we have any discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to our special resolution and action items. Member Williams, do you have HR?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So I have resolution HR 5-25-4098, Duluth District-Wide Instructional Administration Association, or that's DWIA, correct? Okay. Resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 709, St. Louis County, Minnesota, that the collective bargaining agreement between ISD 709 and DWIA, a summary of which is in the hands of all school board members, be approved and adopted for the period August 1st, 2023 to July 31st, 2025, inclusive, and that the chairperson and clerk of the school board be hereby authorized to execute said agreement on behalf of the school district.
Thank you. Member Williams has moved Resolution HR 5-254098. Do we have a second?
Second.
Member Loeffler Kemp has seconded. Do we have any discussion? Member Loeffler
Yeah,
Kemp?
I just wanted to thank Teresa Severance and the HR department for wrapping up this contract and also settling the contract, and then also just providing additional information that you did for the board to kind of better understand the changes that were made with this contract. So thank you.
I would also like to echo what Member Loeffler Kemp had to say and lift up our HR department as well as the DWIA unit for their willingness to come forward and go through the negotiation process and all of that thing. So do we have any other discussion? Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I always like to celebrate when we have a union contract that passes, so that's amazing. Great job. Next, we have a resolution. Member Loeffler Kemp.
Thank you. This is a resolution we've brought forth the last few years in May. I move resolution SP 5-254099, declaring the first Friday in June to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day. This resolution declares the first Friday in June to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the Duluth Public School District to honor and remember all victims and survivors of gun violence, and to declare that we as a country must do more to end this public health crisis. Whereas every day, 125 people in the United States are killed by gun violence, and more than 260 are shot and wounded, with an average of more than 19,000 gun homicides every year. And whereas people in the United States are 26 times more likely to die by gun homicide than people in other high-income countries. And whereas in Minnesota, 527 gun deaths occur every year, and 1,174 people are wounded by guns every year, a crisis that costs the state $6.6 billion each year, of which $105.5 million is paid by taxpayers. And whereas protecting public safety in the communities they serve is a high priority of the school district, and whereas support for the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens goes hand in hand with keeping guns away from those who are a danger to themselves or others, and whereas gun violence prevention is more important than ever as we see high levels of gun violence continue to plague our communities. Whereas in January 2013, Hadia Pendleton was tragically shot and killed at age 15. And on June 6, 2025, to recognize the 28th birthday of Hadia Pendleton, people across the United States will recognize Gun Violence Awareness Day and wear orange in tribute to Hadia Pendleton and other victims of gun violence and the loved ones of those victims. Whereas the idea was inspired by a group of Hadia's friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange. They chose this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out in the woods, and orange is a color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 6th, the first Friday in June in 2025, to help raise awareness about gun violence. Whereas wearing orange on June 6, 2025, people across the United States will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the hands of people who should not have access to them, and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep families and communities safe. Now therefore be it resolved that the Duluth School Board declares the first Friday in June, June 6, 2025, to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day. We encourage all schools to support their local community efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. So I move SP 525-4099, and I thank the school board or the school district for getting information out about safe gun storage as well.
I second.
Member Loeffler Kemp has moved, Member Lofald has seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have B-525-4100, Member Williams.
Okay, I move resolution B-5-25-4100 to remove a former employee from our bank. Be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District Number 709, St. Louis County, Minnesota, that it hereby authorizes the following: the addition of authorized signer, which would be Anthony Bonds, and the removal of the previous authorized signer at Harbor Point Credit Union.
Thank you, Member Williams. You've moved B-5-25-4100. Do I have a second? Member Banks has seconded it. Do we have any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Member Micasell.
I move to authorize district administration to procure the services of necessary project consultants, including ICS, RW Baird, and others, and to work with the project team to develop and submit all required project-related documentation to the Minnesota Department of Education for its formal review and comment for the 424 West First Street project.
Member Mike Cassell has moved. Do we have a second? Second. Member Lofald has seconded. Do we have any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Get that one in there. Okay. Lastly, Member Lofald.
I move B 5-25-4101, the resolution to allow the Minnesota Department of Transportation, known as MnDOT, to acquire a temporary easement from Independent School District Number 709. So be it resolved by the Board of ISD 709, which in consideration of $6,200 to be paid by the State of Minnesota Department of Transportation, that ISD 709 allows the acquisition of a temporary easement by district purchase to the State of Minnesota, described as follows. All of the following. It's a temporary easement for highway purposes in that part of the southwest quarter of Section 7, Township 50 North, Range 13 West, shown as Parcel 5 on Minnesota Department of Transportation right-of-way plot, numbered 69-205, as the same is on file and of record in the Office of the Registrar of Titles in and for St. Louis County, Minnesota, by the temporary easement symbol, the title thereto being registered as evidence by certificate of title number 132302-0. Said easement shall cease on December 1st, 2030, or on such earlier date upon which the Commissioner of Transportation determines by formal order that it is no longer needed for highway purposes. So I move B-5-25-4101.
Member Lofald has made the motion. Do we have a second? Member Williams has seconded. Do we have any discussion? Superintendent Magus.
Yes, there were several questions that came up from various board members, and Executive Director Severance emailed you the responses to those, so those were in your email if you should have any question, or if any of them wanted to be reiterated, we could answer them here at the table.
Thank you, Member Loeffler. Kemp.
Thank you, and I appreciate, Teresa, your responses to the questions that some of us board members had. I guess I just ask that we get updated on this progress and any impact at East High School where this is located through the process of this, and that we are making sure our students and families are informed on when there will be work being done in this area. So thank you again for answering our questions before this came to a vote.
Thank you. Do we have any other discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Do we have any questions / other? I see no questions / other. Oh, yes. Sorry.
I don't think we seconded the resolution on
Yes, we did. Member Williams.
Member Williams seconded the Linden Road.
Right? Okay, good. Member Banks.
Sure, this is under
Oh,
other.
thank you. Yes.
And so I had this handed out, building great places, activating public spaces for the common good. You can take a look at that. It's on May 28th from 12 to 2 at Zeitgeist. It's their annual Building Great Places event. So people like Duluth Mayor and Superior Mayor, Mayor Payne, are going to be there, community organizers, city planners, developers, local leaders, et cetera, and engaged citizens. Keynote speaker, conversation with R.T. Ryback of the Minneapolis Foundation and Evelyn Burnett from Third Space Action Lab, and they're going to have panel discussions, and I'm grateful that I will be on one of the panels, and it's open to the public. It's going to be at Zeitgeist on the 28th, which is a Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Banks. Do we have any questions or other?
I do.
Yes, Member Mike Cassell.
I just want to point out to the public that there will be the second and last public information meeting for the Lowell traffic study on Race Lake Road. That's coming up in next week, 2 weeks? 2 weeks. And unfortunately, it falls on the same night as the East graduation. So I know the majority of us will probably be up on the stage. They're congratulating our graduates on their significant achievement. But I encourage anyone who doesn't have a student or a loved one that they want to go support to please attend that so they can weigh in and hear a little bit more about that process.
Thank you, Member Mike Cassell. Seeing no other questions or other, we move on to adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Member Williams made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Lofold is second. Do we have any discussion about adjourning at 8:30? Let's just sit with that for a minute. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned.